Jude.
Hi Hilary, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good, good.
Now, for the purposes of identifying the tape, can you state your full name and spell it, please?
It's Jude Ann Fitzgerald. It's Jude Annanne Fitzgerald Fitzgerald.
Okay, thank you. So why were you given your name?
Oh, I got my name actually a very special way. Believe it or not, looking at me, you'd never think. I was a pound in weight actually when I was born. I was premature. I was 6.5 months premature, and my mother gave birth to me. And I was a pound in weight, as I said, and the doctors didn't think I would live at all. So what she did, she promised St. Jude, who's a patron saint of hopeless cases, that if I did live, that she would call me after him. And actually I did, as you can see. I was in hospital, love, for a year, and the only way they came up to see me was like my father was in the army, so they used to come up on the truck anytime the army trucks were going up to Limerick. They'd come up and see me, so that's how I got my name. Yeah.
Were you born in the hospital?
I was actually born in the hospital, yeah. At that time, they had incubators, but not to the extent that they have them now. They were incubators, I would say, at that point. And I was what you call a blue baby at that time. So I actually went to Cashel first, and then they had to rush me to Limerick, which was more of a city hospital as opposed to a town hospital. So it worked better for them. They had more facilities up there. So at that time.
And where exactly is your home?
My home is actually in Clonmala in Clonmel, County Tipperary.
And is that the townland,
Clonmala? Yeah, that's the actual town. Yeah, Clonmel.
And
yeah.
what is the parish?
The parish is actually St. Peter and Paul's. Yeah. But I was never baptised there, though. That's our parish, but we all just went to Mass there, so, yeah.
Okay. And when were you born?
I was born on the 20th of April, 1966, in the morning, actually, yeah.
Can you describe your childhood home?
Oh, our house was always full of energy. There was always, well, actually, I was one of 3 at that time. And we just had a great time. We actually had nothing, which was even better. We used to just go out and play ball, and my mother was always there. She didn't work, and she did work when my older brother was born, but then she gave up work, and she was a stay-at-home mom, so that was kind of nice. She was always there when we came in from school and stuff like that. So, but we had a lot of friends in the area. We actually lived right near a park. It's actually called Barn Park where we live, and we spent a lot of time there just as kids. It was like free, and our home was just great. We just watched television. You know, we barely had nothing, but it was great. We had each other. That was kind of the main thing at that point. That's what I really remember, you know, just had each other playing around, and my uncle came to live with us, and that was it. So.
What kind of games did you play?
Well, we used to play even rounders back then, but we had never a ball or anything like that. We used to use green sods from the grass, and we played a lot of soccer as well at that time, and basketball, but we never had like basketball hoops or anything like that. It was a lot of made up games too as well. We never had board games we did, like snakes and ladders, but it was really like, you know, you had to really do your own thinking to come up with the games, you know. It wasn't like anything that was handed to us. And then we used to always play hurling and the football as well. Like we used to go out with our hurley sticks and balls out the back as well. So, and then we got into, when we were young, we thought we could collect birds. You know, we didn't realise that the birds were like of our nature. We thought we could have them as pets. So we started that then one year. But then what we did was very actually interesting. We lived on a row of houses. There were 6 of us, 6 houses. And we were all kind of the one age group, you know, because when the next door neighbour was pregnant, my mother was pregnant, the other one up the road was pregnant. So we did our own play one time. It was called the Lightning Express. But I was only very young at the time, so they only gave me a little part in it, because I was the real troublemaker. I wanted to be into everything, and my older sister, you know, they were doing the play. They were about 15 or 16. So we put on a show for everybody in the town. So yeah, and we actually collected money from that. Back then, that was a big ordeal, because you wouldn't even get like 50 pence to go to a circus, like, so that was a big ordeal. Yeah, we did it out in the shed, like out in the backyard. Yeah, and we had our audience. We used to put up like curtains, you know, and everything. So yeah, so that was kind of fun actually. That was really a big thing that we did at that time, like, so yeah.
Did you write your own show?
No, actually, my sister got this play. It was called The Lightning Express. It was there's a song with it as well about a little kid that his mother was dying and he couldn't get back to see her because he actually had no money and whatever, and he was away at the time. So he pleaded with the conductor of this train to actually bring him back just to see his mother before he died. And actually, it turned out that he did leave him on the train, and he didn't have to actually pay the fee to get on there because, you know, he felt sorry for them. And that's the way people were back then too, though. I mean, they were very generous and very considerate and more, you know, more sincere. But now you wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't leave you on a bus now or a train without paying. Times have definitely changed. So, yeah, so that's what we did.
Now back to your siblings. You said you had 3 siblings?
4 now because I have a younger sister. Yeah, at that time there was only 3 of us. So.
What are their names?
There's Emma, Peter, Pat, and Kiva. So, yeah.
And are any of them here in the United States?
Yeah, Kiva is. My younger sister is actually with us. She came out here about 8 years ago and stayed. So she's living with us at the moment, yeah. So I can't get rid of her.
And what was your maiden name?
Barry was my maiden name, yeah. So.
Okay. Did you know your grandparents?
Actually, just one of my actually grandfather lived with us for quite some time. My aunt actually died when she was 42 from breast cancer, so he actually lived with her for years. So then my mother took him in, and yeah, so he lived with us. He was a very funny man, very much into music, and he used to go up every day for his pension. Up to the post office, he'd sit outside and then he'd come back with the money, like with the few shillings that they got at that point. And I used to always remember he used to put 10pence at that time, it was like a dime, put up on his forehead, and as long as you sang the song, you got the 10pence off the forehead. But if you didn't know the song or sing it properly, you didn't get the 10pence. So it was a big incentive at that time for us, because I mean, money was very scarce at that time. So, you know what I mean, he'd make you earn the money, which I thought was very good. Like, we didn't just get anything from him. And he used to bring home then the bullseyes to us as well. So, yeah.
And what kinds of songs would he have you sing?
He'd real all old IRA songs he'd have us sing. He was a real old IRA man. And he used to get the pension, actually. That's what the pension he used to go up and collect. He claimed he was in the old IRA anyway. So, I don't know. I'm sure he was telling the truth. But we were young, so we didn't care. We were only worried about the 10pence. So he would be singing all these old Irish songs, but sure, we never really, I mean, we learned them, but we sang enough for him just to get the 10pence out of him, like, and he used to get fed up with us then because we were just like 2 bowed, then there'd be 3 or 4 of us at the side of his bed, like, so, yeah, so, but that's what you sing, yeah, the old IRA songs, yeah.
Can you remember any of them?
Do you know, honest to God, I couldn't, but if I was, like, if you asked me in a half an hour, I probably will. Do you know, that kind of way? Yeah, he used to be always singing away to himself, like, and I don't think he could ever sing, God bless him, but he thought he could. That was the main thing, you know. But he was old at that time now. But funny, you know, very funny man, like, and everyone loved him because he was kind of like, he used to deliver the mail in the town, like the letters and stuff, the mail. So a lot of people knew him, and he was a big figure in what they called Irish Town, which is just up the road from us. And he used to always sit outside the post office, so every day everyone knew him, and they'd always say well to him. So he was well known, like, around the town, like, so, because he'd nothing else to do, and he'd sit there, and he'd sit there all day, and then come home for his dinner. So that was his everyday event.
What was his name?
Patrick Welch. Well, we used to call him Paddy Welch. So, but actually his right name was Patrick Welch. Yeah. So yeah, that's my mother's maiden name. She was a Welsh before she married. So yeah.
And were you born in a town? Did you live in a town?
We actually lived in the town. Yeah, right. Not dead central, but we weren't out in the suburbs either. But yeah, we were in town. Yeah, we did in Clonmel. Yeah, all our life. Actually, my mother was always in town. Yeah, they actually lived up on Albert Street, which was real old at that time. And she said, you know, it's funny to hear the stories now, because she said there were really neighbours at that point. There was about, again, 6 or 8 houses all in one, and they knew everybody. And she said no one had nothing. And they used to work in Bulmers, which is actually to make the Magner cider, you know, the apples, and a lot of crush the apples to make the drinks, like beer and stuff like that. And she worked there for a while before she got married, and a lot of the neighbours there worked there as well. So she said it used to be funny. She said when they'd have nothing to eat, one of them would put on, you know, a big pot of soup. So everyone ate that. She said you might have it 3 days, you might have it for the week. And she said it used to be funny then because she said the people used to come around, you know, when they'd order furniture and stuff like that, you'd barely have the tables and the chairs. But she said they'd come back next week and take them back because they wouldn't be able to afford them. So she said it always looked good for a week, but then the next week she said you'd have nothing again. But she said they were the days, you know what I mean, that's the way they lived. And then she said even for a christening, she said they used to wrap the drink from Bulmers. She said every man of them would go home with 2 drinks a day, so they'd have enough, like if any child was getting christened or anything like that. The whole neighbours would come in again. She said it was so bad you could walk through everyone's house. You didn't have to go outside to do it. You could go right through them. Yeah, they're condemned though to this day now. I mean, obviously they're gone. You know, they condemned them at some point. But yeah, I mean, but as she always said, they were neighbours at that point because she said no one had nothing. But she said they were the fun times. She said, you know, and at one time then in Clonmel they used to have a talent show, and Bulmers used to run it. So they all actually sang. My mother's a beautiful singer, and I've got great pictures of her. They did a big parade in town one time, and she was sitting on a donkey, coming down the street, and she was singing, you know, that red, red robin goes bob, bob, bobbing along, and they won it for Bulmers because it was kind of like you're going against the other big people in town, like we'll say Bulmers was there, the hospital was there, any big renowned jobs were there, like whoever worked, and they did a talent show, not against each other, but just for fun. And they won it that year with them singing the Red, Red Robin going down. Yeah, they won it for Bulmers that year. We still have the clippings from the papers and everything, like, yeah. It was fun then, she said, but it's great to hear all those stories, like, and everything, you know. So I guess that's where my sister got her talent for doing her shows.
Your sister's in shows?
No, when she was like at 15, like doing this, yeah, so. But yeah, that was fun.
And how about,
There we go. And we're rolling.
okay, what were the colours like in your town when you looked out your front door?
When we looked out our front door, all you saw was actually a big field across. We lived actually across from the home. There was an elderly home care. But what it was actually up on the hill. So they actually just had a big playing field. And we were just all allowed play on that. And I don't know who owned it. The town actually owned it at that time. And they never did anything with it. So a lot of kids, we all went over there just playing hurling, and we used to play soccer over there and everything. There was absolutely nothing there, only a field. And actually I used to do running at that time. So I used to run around the field and run up and down by the hospital and everything, and no one kind of ever bothered us. So that's all we saw when we looked out our front yard, was just green, and the railroad tracks then were just way beyond that as well. So it's just basically all just fields of green. That's all we saw. But now obviously you don't, you know. I mean, the field, actually I shouldn't say that. They turned it into a soccer field now, but then they built a sports complex there as well now. So, yeah, but that's where we grew up, so it was really handy. And then even around the corner from us, as I said, we had our own park there. So that's where we spent our time. So, but then we used to go off, though, then, as I said, around the railroad tracks. But beyond the railroad tracks was a place called, Frenchy Stream. We used to go and collect the, what were they called? The brickines, we used to call them. They were, they turned into frogs eventually, but we used to bring them home. They were like little brickines. We used to go off with little nets just to pick them up and bring them home. We used to go off for hours, and we'd all be like down around collecting the brickines to bring them home, and you'd have the little jars and everything. So yeah, it was pretty cool. We used to all go off, like all the neighbours' kids. We used to all just play together, like, you know. So it was nice that way, like. But it used to be so funny, this girl that lived about 4 houses down from her, the Logues, Eileen, I always remember. I mean, this is how bad we were. She got a beautiful new dress, and there was a big hullabaloo over it because it was all flowers, and she loved flowers. And I mean, it probably looked ridiculous at that time, but sure, the big thing was she got the new dress, but we couldn't understand why she was collecting brickines in the new dress, like, you know. But she just really wanted to show it off, but we didn't have a new dress, so we kind of pushed her. We made her run. So we tripped her and she fell into the mud. So she was destroyed. But she wasn't allowed to play with us for a while. But we didn't mind that because we were delighted she didn't look as good as she thought she did. So yeah, I remember that. She thought she was great with her lovely dress, her flowery dress. To this day, actually, she's into flowers. It's kind of like a standing joke with us now when we go back, you know. So she's even into flowers to this day.
Are you friends with her now?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it all. When I do go home, we always meet up and we always like laugh about the things that we did, you know, because my brothers then, when we got a little bit older, they started putting up swings on the trees for us. So we used to always be over. That's where we used to all hang out. No one ever went anywhere because we hadn't then. I mean, on Sundays we used to be brought off. I mean, that was a big ordeal. That was our big family thing, was being brought to the beach. But my father was terrible. If he tell you to be ready at 8 o'clock, that meant he wouldn't leave till 10. And we'd be all sitting in the car waiting for him. So the novelty, that wore off. So every time he told us 8 o'clock, we'd wait until 10 o'clock to get into the car. We kind of figured it out in the finish that, you know, there's no point in getting excited and rushing this man. But we used to spend, but one day he did bring us to Ballybunion. It's beautiful. There's nothing down there. Like, I mean, Tramore was there as well, but that had all the rides and stuff like that. So that cost money. But we always went to Ballybunion where there was nothing, only sand and beach, the river or the sea. And so one day he wouldn't buy us ice cream. So I said to my sister, what we'll do is we'll bury the keys. But I didn't realise that, you know, when you bury keys in sand, that you kind of don't get them back. So I got killed. I wasn't brought to the... I didn't see Ballybunion for a long time after that. I couldn't tell you when I was brought back.
And where is Ballybunion? Which county?
It's in Waterford. Yeah, it's in County Waterford. Yeah, it's only about 30 miles from home. But at that time, not a lot of us had cars and that. I mean, we had a car. But actually, the Lenans that lived up four doors up from us, they were very, very nice. He actually was a beverage distributor. He used to bring all the wines and the beers to all the different towns. And he always had the van because it was a company van. He was always very good to us. He used to bring us to Tramore and everything. And we used to get money for that. Then we'd have to earn, you know, for about a couple of weeks. And he used to always bring us after Tramore in the van. All the neighbours' kids, they were very, very good to us. But at that time, we didn't know that God loved them. The two of them were two alcoholics. And he was obviously in the good business for that. And we used to go off with them of a Sunday, and they used to put us in the paddling boats and everything. Sure, he used to be drunk, like driving the truck back. I remember one day, Jocko Grace was his name. He lost his shoes. Another fella came home without a pants. I mean, they used to never watch us because we were always just given money to go off and do whatever. But we used to love going with them. They were very funny. But like, we have a long path into our house. And for years when my brother was like getting older, like when he was 16, 17, we had like what they call a big ditch right outside our door, like at the side of it, not right outside the door, right at the side, like that would block you off from the neighbour next door, like. And they used to, when my mother used to always find drink shoved into the ditch, and she used to always blame my brother. He used to get killed. But it was only years later, even though she lived next door to him, that she realised the two above were doing all the drink and hiding the drink in there. So, but of course, then when my mother told my brother the drink was there, he wasn't long about drinking it anyway. So it was him in the finish, like. So yeah, so that was really, that's what we did. You know, went down to Ballybunion, yeah, and I'll never forget that with the keys. Oh my God.
And you mentioned sports. I know you're very active in sports here. Were you active on sports teams?
Oh God, yeah. I ran for the school. I played soccer for a company called Scheizers. They're actually Scheizers. They're a German company that make men's underwear. Played for them for years. Played for Digital, and then I played squash. What happened was actually the sports complex that went up across the road from us. I knew the guy that ran it, so anyone that ever wanted to play squash, play indoor soccer, if they were stuck, they just called Jude. So they used to come in the door. I wouldn't even know these people. He'd always say, Jude will play because she's great. And I used to go over and play with them. And it was great because they all paid for it. They were short a person. So it was great because I was able to do the squash, the racquetball, and then I was able to do the indoor soccer with them. So, yeah, so it was really nice. But we had fun doing the soccer. We travelled to all the different towns. I mean, to Ballingarry, like real to country areas where they'd only have the soccer field, a pub and a church, and that'd be it. But we used to always get like, the bus used to pick us up, and we used to just go in for major sessions then after the soccer. But we actually were lucky one year. We actually played, the Irish team came down from Dublin, which was a big thing back then. And Susan McCann was there, and there was an awful lot of Frank Stapleton, who was actually a very famous soccer player. His sister actually was down and played against us. We got beaten 13-0 the same day because they put me in goal. And I never forget it. It was just too funny because I was there one time, and I guess they must have scored a goal. And I was saying to the referee, I said, well, where's the ball? And he said, I think it's in the back of the net. You need to look for it. If they were that good, I didn't even know she was after scoring the goal, and I was inside in the net. So it's kind of funny. We laughed about that, but it was great that we could do that. I mean, we were a very good team. We won a lot of competitions around the place, and then we started playing for the AIB. They used to run tournaments like a 7-a-side, and I remember one time they were kind of always not very well. They were kind of snobby people that worked for the bank way back then. It's not as big a deal now. So they ran a tournament one time, and she called me up and she asked me could I get 8 people to play, 4 boys and 3 girls and whatever sub. So I said I would, and we had been out the night before. Actually, it was my 18th birthday. We had a big party. I'll never forget that. And we went in as the Hangovers. I couldn't think of a name, so I said, let's put us in as the Hangovers. So we played from about 10 o'clock in the morning till about 7 o'clock at night and won. There was this beautiful perpetual cup, which we still have to this day. We won the cup. They weren't one bit happy because you had like 4 or 5 people. But we were very good at the soccer. What I did was I got 2 fellas from the country. One of my friends, Helen, was going out with this fella from Wexford, and he was a farmer, and he was an absolute fabulous runner, couldn't play soccer at all. But that didn't matter because the guys couldn't score. So I thought if I got 2 people that could do all the running, we could score the goals. We're golden. So and that's what we did, and we won the tournament. Yeah, to this day. And we had a big reception down at, they had to have a big reception to present us with the cup. So kind of that was funny to see all of us going up and they're all sitting there because that didn't go down too well at all. So yeah, so that was kind of brilliant. We were very happy with that at that time. So yeah, so that was.
Now you mentioned school. What was school like?
Oh, school was grand. I mean, when you look back, we went to the Sisters of Charity, which actually was run all by nuns at that time and very older teachers at that time. The nuns were, Mother Magdalene was her name, and she was an absolute horrible person. I used to bring this girl, Eleanor Kane, actually, her mother, she lived next door to us. Her mother actually died of cancer very, very young. And my mother, the Good Samaritan that she is, we took her in and reared her, even though her father was there. But her father worked up in what they called Chappies at that time, was the meat factory. I mean, we did get very good meat at all times because he used to bring it down to us in the paper bags like sheep's heart and everything that no one ever got at that time. You know, you wouldn't be able to afford it, but they were able to take it home. But anyway, I used to bring her to school. She was she was only in first babies, as we call it. It was like kindergarten, I suppose, here. And I used to bring her because her mother was dying at the time, and then she died, and then the little kids were horrible to her. You know, they're always saying, oh, your mother died. But in the heel of the hunt, we were always late for school because this kid never got up in time. I was always very early. But and when I started bringing her, I was always late, and the nun used to always wait for me. She had no sympathy for us whatsoever with her mother dying or nothing. She didn't care less. School started at 8:30. I had to be there. And she never said that to all the other kids. Used to make fun of her, like saying your mother died and everything. But I mean, sure, kids are cruel. They didn't know at that time. But the best thing only I can remember about school is we used to get the bread, the real fresh bread, and a glass of milk. Not a glass, I suppose it was a plastic cup back then. Every time you get that about 11 o'clock. But that was the big highlight of school. Other than the fact that, like, you know, we just had each other at school. They were just horrible. The teachers themselves weren't too bad, but they were just said and led by the nuns at that point. I mean, we'd made our first communion. Well, actually, yeah, I made my first communion, and they wouldn't let me do any readings or anything like that because as I said to you, remember I was a pound of weight when I was born. I was actually confirmed. I received 6 of the sacraments. Obviously, matrimony was the only one I didn't receive at that point. So when it came to my communion and confirmation, they wouldn't allow me make my confirmation with the other kids or nothing. They were horrible back then. So there was another kid, I always remember him, the fella, the Duns, Terry Dunn was his name. And they used to own this Greyhound bar. Mother and father were lovely people. So my name, and it was so funny, they put my name in, and as true as I'm sitting here, the teacher, Mrs. Gaffney, I always remember, because she always talked and spat at the same time. I was always wondering how she could do it. And but she did it, and my name came out. Every time they pick someone, we'll say to bring up the Eucharist to do a reading, my name came out 7 times. So in the finish, she got so mad because my name kept coming out, and she would not allow me do it. She said it straight out to all the class. She's not making her confirmation. She's no right to be there. She's not doing it. So they took my name out of the hat then altogether because she was sick and tired of my name coming out. And I said, there is a God there, you see. So I went home anyway, and I was telling this to my mother. And because I was always the one that, if there was an argument at school, I'd answer back and wonder why she's doing all this. So I went home and I was saying to my mother, I can't understand why, number one, she's not allowing me to do it. And I said, aren't I going to meet the bishop? Because everyone was all excited. And you get the new outfit, and of course, plus the fact you get the money too. So I think that was a big factor too at that time. So I went anyway and explained all this to my mother. Well, not explained to her. I told her she better go down to the school teacher, you know, because that was unfair. So my mother went down to the school teacher. They wouldn't allow me read, but then they came to this agreement that they'd have me at the church. So my mother called up and I was telling her there was another boy at that time making his confirmation that I found out about, that he wasn't going to the church either. They got together and we even worked out better because we went up. When everyone was done going up, you walk up the aisle of the church like to get confirmed by the bishop. We got to meet the bishop, whereas they didn't. They got it in Russian, so we were thrilled with this. My mother arranged with the bishop that morning and really annoyed the teacher because she put us in the back of the church, number one, so we wouldn't be sitting up with all the other your class like at that time. And it wasn't just our school, so it was every school in the district came in town. Like there was 4 schools, so it was really embarrassing.